Being a college athlete is commonly associated with fame and spotlight. What people fail to realize is that NCAA athletes are students, as well as young adults pursuing a college degree.
We do work them very, very hard, and not just football. You can come over here and go down that weight room at 6 o'clock about every morning of the week. You're going to see a whole lot of athletes in there working. You're going to see them in here at study table in the evening. You're going to see them in the middle of the summer working very, very hard.
When a TV show airs interviews with star athletes, it contributes to our belief that all NCAA sport consists of are games and the public eye.
There's a lot that people don't see when it comes to athletes. Like, obviously with sports that make television, all they see is, the competition part of it. They don't see the restless nights of doing schoolwork and the up and the getting the tutors and they don't like the strenuous practice and then having to still do homework due the next day. Like, they don't see all that, and it's kind of hard to explain that to someone who's not around it or who's not in it.
College athletes are students too, and they are here to learn life lessons just like any other student. Only about 1% of college athletes make it to the professional level in their respective sport. That means that graduating college is essential to them. That is why they are surrounded by a team of advisors and tutors. They are also monitored and awarded for their academic achievements.
To begin looking at college athletics, let's first look at philosophy of sport, which is dualism. It claims that mind and matter are two ontologically separate categories. They can't be reduced to each other in any way. They're separate, but they do interact. The mind is characterized by words like the soul, the psyche, and non-material, which are more abstract ideas, and matter, which is just material. Everything is made up of small, unreduced parts. To put this in perspective with sports, like the UNC case, the college chose easier classes for students so that they could maximize their athletic training. So essentially they sacrificed mind for matter. This is not to say that the players don't develop mentally from their practices, but looking at the bigger picture of how classes are separated from athletics, it indicates a more dualistic approach to the overall college athletic system.
I was like, hold up, I got a class, I'm getting credited 3 hours, and I never have to go.
That's not all that surprised Mike McAdoo when he arrived at UNC to play football.
When I got there, they already had what we were going to major in.
But you're not suggesting, Michael, that somebody handed you a piece of paper and said, here are your classes.
That's what happened.
From the first day I stepped foot on campus, I had a schedule.
Class schedule.
Class schedule.
And you didn't pick those classes?
No, sir.
The athletic department picked those classes?
Yes, sir.
Brian Bishop played on the UNC football team too, and like Mike McAdoo, he says he was told to take courses in one specific major for one specific reason.
So somebody in the athletic department said, Brian, you're going to major in African American studies?
Correct.
Did they ever say flat out, we want you to study these courses because they're easier?
Yes, they did.
What do they say?
To stay on course of graduation, you would need to take these courses.
We spoke to some kids who said they were shuttled into, in many cases, African American studies.
Right.
Is that true?
Yes, it was a total scam.
According to Mary Willingham, lots of UNC athletes were funneled into African American studies.
Did you have to take a language?
Yes, I did.
What language did you study?
Swahili.
Swahili.
Yes.
Does that come in handy since you graduated?
No, not at all.
So you didn't pick Swahili. You didn't say, hey, I think I want to study Swahili.
Absolutely not.
What language did you take?
I took Swahili.
Swahili.
Yes.
Do you speak Swahili a little bit?
As of right now, no.
This creates the dilemma for college athletes as to whether they are students or whether they are athletes. Although the NCAA limits athletic activity to 20 hours per week during the season and 8 hours per week during the off-season, many students feel the need to put in extra work in order to stay ahead. A recent NCAA survey of 21,000 current athletes at 627 Division I, II, and III schools found that the athletes were putting in far more work in their athletics than they were for their academics. As you can see, football players, baseball players, and basketball players at Division I schools spend far more time doing their athletic activities rather than their education. This same survey also found that out of the 21,000 athletes surveyed, 2 out of 3 said that they viewed themselves more as an athlete rather than a student.
If your mind's worn out, your body's worn out, and you don't sleep enough, by the end of the year, you're pretty much toast. Balancing both school and football it's an ongoing challenge. You could consider football a full-time job. Time to go to class. It hasn't been necessarily easy so far trying to balance school and football, but that's what you got to do to play in college. So I probably could have made it a little easier on myself by not choosing engineering. The class I'm going to is AE 504. It's a graduate level class on optimal control theory.
The actual cost is J bar if the 2 constraints are satisfied.
The professor talks about what he's going to talk about, and we try to keep up. Lately, it's been getting a little over my head.
In terms of
I'm just leaving.
All right.
I think college football today has become a full-time job.
If you're spending, say, 20 hours a week doing homework, you've got 12 hours a week of class and 20 official hours during football, but that can take, anywhere 25 to 30 a week. It's a hefty schedule.
If you want to be a great player and have a great team, it takes a year-round commitment.
Crossface, block, you'll pick him up, I'll get this first backer. It probably is a fair assumption to say that there are athletes in general that take easier majors, but there's a lot more on our plates than the typical student.
Holism. This is an Eastern philosophy that does not inherently separate the mind-body as it does in dualism. This doesn't correspond well with Western concepts. Reed's quote is, "Healing any illusions of the mind-body split." Let's look at a few words. Shin. This is the heart-mind, a concept that combines the two concepts of the mind and body quite well. Ti, which is the body in terms of systems, functions, and vital spirit. This is contrasted with dualism because it intertwines the two concepts of mind and body so well. In sports, martial arts are a key to holism. For example, the Karate Kid, where one bully abuses martial arts materialistically and physically, but is defeated by this kind of wimpy kid who defeat the bully through a more holistic approach because he's trained spiritually by Mr. Miyagi.
Yeah, you did it! So you okay? Can you go on? Get him a body bag! Yeah! All right. Feet. Do it again, Johnny. Warning for illegal contact to the knee. Finish it, Johnny! Finish it! No mercy! No mercy! Play the fist, Johnny! Finish him! Fight! Yeah!
A dualistically educated athlete is superior to an athlete devoted to dualism because connecting the mind-body problem in education produces more intelligent athletes. The current structure of the NCAA, however, forces student athletes to choose dualistically between sports and school.
This creates a continuing cycle for the NCAA athlete. On one hand, they need to perform well to keep their scholarship, as for many of them it is the only way they can afford to pay for college. However, in order to stay and keep their scholarship, they need to perform well on the field. This leads to them spending many extra hours working out, looking at film, and doing other athletic activities when they could be spending time on their schoolwork. However, because they can't spend time studying for their classes, they are then not getting the education that many of them seek in the first place.
The U.S. Secretary of Education has issued a first-of-its-kind challenge to collegiate athletic teams.
I think I have an obligation to challenge the status quo. I'm going to continue to do that.
Arnie Duncan says if a college fails to graduate 40% of its athletes based on its teams from past years, the current team should be banned from postseason tournaments.
If universities can't graduate 2 out of 5 of their student athletes, how serious they are about their core mission?
The NCAA would have to approve it, but if Secretary Duncan's proposal was enacted, 12 of the 65 teams in this year's NCAA basketball tournament would have been under that 40% level and therefore not allowed to play in the tournament. But then there are schools like Butler University.
We're actually going to head inside and see Clues Hall right now. We actually had Madeline Albright come.
This small Indianapolis campus was the proud home of a team that made it all the way to the NCAA championship game before losing to Duke, and like Duke, has a very high graduation rate.
It confirms for me that it is possible to achieve athletic excellence and academic excellence at the same time.
Dr. Bobby Fong is the president of Butler.
The men's basketball team practices at 6:30 in the morning. That's the time when all of them have free from class.
We talked to one of the team's stars, Willie Veasley, as he got ready for Final Four weekend.
I know that we've got the whole Final Four stuff going on, but I think Coach is more worried about our grades and stuff and making sure that we're taking care of that stuff with all this stuff going on.
So what does the NCAA think about Secretary Duncan's proposal? Will the organization jump through hoops to get this done? Doesn't look that way. In a statement, the NCAA declared, "We share Secretary of Education Arnie Duncan's concern. However, imposing a ban on teams for the academic performance of student athletes who entered as freshmen 8 to 11 years ago is probably not the best course of action. Basing postseason bans on graduation rates penalizes the wrong students." The NCAA currently uses a complex point system to ban teams from postseason play, but it's much harder to get kicked out. Many colleges think it's the fairest system. As for the president of Butler,
I didn't think the NCAA would go for it, but I'd be in support of it.
he's all for the tougher system. Gary Tuckman,